Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
We are live!
What's his brother's name?
Bruce Buffer? Michael Buffer.
Michael Buffer.
Let's get ready to rumble!
That's Bruce, right?
That's Michael. Bruce is... We're live!
For the UFC?
Yeah. 5 rounds! And the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world!
I miss UFC. Alright.
Guess I should bring these notes back up. Alright, here we go.
Let's get this party rolling. Ready? 3, 2.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode number 35. I'm your host, Brian, Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Titanium Tony Estrella.
You are fired up today.
We got a lot to talk about today.
You got a spring.
You made me wait an extra day.
I know. I'm sorry. I was cooked, man. I fished all day yesterday. Fished hard. I fished till I couldn't stand anymore.
I came home early yesterday. I was like, oh, man, we're
sorry.
going to finally talk about this movie. And Titanium's like, I'm tired. I won't go bed.
Yeah, I was exhausted. Anyway, let's get it rolling, Professor. Take us to school.
Got a big episode this week. Got a lot to talk about. But we also, before we get started, we always want to thank the listeners who bring the show to you, and those are our patrons. Patreon.com, patreon.com/supertalk. You can support the show directly. These are gents and ladies that have chosen to donate $1 every time we release an episode, and when they do that, you know, they're helping to support the show directly, and they're helping to bring it to you. So, hey, we appreciate you out there, our patrons. Keep it up. Keep up the good work and the good fight, and we wouldn't be able to do it without you, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys, boys and girls. Appreciate the sponsorships.
And one special shout out, I've got a couple good friends of ours now, Marshall and Luis. They host a show called Limited Resources. Look, if you're into Magic the Gathering card game, Limited, I could get into the details of the show, but I've supported them for years directly. Hey, look, I reached out to Marshall back in January. We started the show. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any advice on like what do you use to support to do your podcast? How do you record? What do you do? And Marshall was very friendly and got right back to me and said, yeah, happy to help you out. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Here's what to use. And he kind of gave me some advice. I'm like, because we were novices, we had no idea what we were doing.
It was a springboard to us taking off a little bit.
So that was great. And then, of course, they have a Patreon page, and which I'm on. And they said, hey, we do these Q&A episodes every now and then. We're looking for people to submit questions to the show. And I said, hey, maybe I'll submit a question about the podcast. And I asked, we've had this podcast now for eight plus, almost nine months now, I guess. Yeah. And any advice on how we can expand our audience and continue to grow? And they spent the first 15 minutes of their show answering our questions.
Very generous.
Giving us advice.
Oh, very supportive. And I really took their advice to heart. That was great.
So go check them out. LRcast.com is how you get to their direct page. But
bottom line, don't fake it till you make it. That was their message,
Right.
Great advice.
And they also said, hey, you guys are still going after 9 months. Heck, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because a lot of shows don't make it that long. So anyway, thanks, Marshall and Luis. Really appreciate it. And we'll put a link to your show in the show notes for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's get into the kind of early stage of the show. We'll start off with our normal reviews section brought to us by our friends over at Gooder Sunglasses.
Gooder Sunglasses.
GOODR.com. How you get there. Look at these beautiful sunglasses up here. Good story over the weekend, Labor Day weekend. My wife wore her Gooder sunglasses the entire weekend as we were boating and everything. I mean, she was like, these are really awesome sunglasses. I'm like, yeah.
I wore them all day fishing. Really helped. Yeah, it was nice. I was sweating and good stuff. Good glasses.
They are really, really well-made quality glasses, and they just perform in the weather is all I can say. So they're great.
Cool.
Thanks for our friends at Gooder. So first review this week, we do want to talk about the What If episode that was released last Wednesday, which was What If Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands.
Wow.
Best episode yet.
It was definitely the best episode yet, and just heart-wrenching. I mean, out of...
I loved it.
Out of the norm for Marvel to give you this wrapped up package of a happy ending, and this was just pulled at the heartstrings, and it was, it's an animated series, right? So there's only so much emotion you can get from non-live action, but it was emotional. It was a great, great show. I liked it a lot.
Well, the first thing I noticed was every actor and actress came back to voice their parts. Every single one.
Yeah.
So we had Benedict Cumberbatch back as Doctor Strange, of course. We did have Wong came back.
Yeah.
We had
Amy Adams. Is that her name?
No. Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams. Okay. Rachel McAdams. Dude, I'm telling you, we're going to go over Shang-Chi, and I'm not even going to try those names because I will butcher them.
Yeah. Yeah, but Rachel McAdams was back. We had the Ancient One was back. And we had Tilda Swinton back as the Ancient One. Everybody was back.
Unbelievable.
It was great.
And I think it enhanced the show.
Oh, of course. Of course it did.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting twist they put on it was that the moment in time, and they basically took the Doctor Strange plot and said, we're going to change one thing, and the thing we're going to change is, instead of Doctor Strange getting in a car accident by himself and destroying his hands, he's going to be in a car accident with, what's her name? What's the character's name? I can't remember that Rachel McAdams plays.
Right.
Gets in the car with her, and she dies.
Yeah.
And it destroys it. Like, he was just destroyed.
He couldn't get over it.
No.
Like, he was grief-stricken. And I thought it was really emotional. You could just see the agony and pain in him.
And where losing his hands helped drive him towards finding magic and discovering sorcery and learning it so quickly in the Doctor Strange movie, losing her is what drove him to do the same thing in this show.
To learn the whole mystic arts, to become the Sorcerer Supreme.
And they basically said, up until a point, until the end of the Doctor Strange movie, it was the same.
Yeah.
The same outcome. He defeated
Dormammu.
Same outcome.
Yeah.
However, right after that, the path that they went on was very different.
Mm-hmm.
And his path was one of, okay, I've got to find a way to save her. There's got to be a way to bring her back.
Yeah, it was one of those, and he tried the Time Stone, he tried that, and it was one of those events that he could not change. It was a permanent event in time that no matter what he did, and he relived it 100 times in different scenarios. He tried not going. He tried to stay off that road. He tried all these different things, and the end result was she still got killed in a car crash or still got killed in some way. It was sad.
Christine Palmer, by the way.
Palmer.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's Christine. He kept, and what he ended up doing was, now that he had saved the world from Dormammu, he's like, I can use the Time Stone to bring her back.
Yeah,
I can figure this out. And he kept going back in time.
Yeah,
using the Time Stone, and it was really a unique. The way they did this was, he actually just flashed right back to that moment in time and was reliving it over and over again using the Time Stone. Every time he tried to change the outcome, she kept dying.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about.
It's amazing.
It was, yeah, and no matter what he did, she kept dying. It was one of those things that the Ancient One came back and said that you can't change that. That event.
It's an absolute event in time. Mm-hmm. So it's an absolute event in our time, is what she said. And that's the difference. It's not the time that we remember from the movie. It's the time of the show.
Yeah.
But it was an absolute event. She said, you cannot change an absolute event. It's just something you can't do. And he kept trying to go back. And even at one point in time, I think he had stood her up. Instead of getting in the car with her, like, he tried to take different routes and do all that. But one time he just said, I'm just not going. And he, watching TV, finds out that she died in some explosion in some building.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So she and the Ancient One came and saw him in a vision and said, you cannot change this. Mm-hmm. And he didn't believe her. He's like, no, I can figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. He ends up going to a mystical place and basically freezing himself in time and stealing power from dimensional creatures, right?
Well, he ended up the book of, what was the name of the book that he pulled, that had all the rules about the dark dimension and time in the original movie? Cagliostro, the Book of Cagliostro.
Yeah.
He went to find the original sorcerer Cagliostro.
Right.
So he went back in ancient history and found him, and said, "Oh, I'm going to find you and your library. I'm going to read everything you know about this, and I'm going to figure it out." Because he's like, "I'm smart. I can figure this out." He basically figured out, hey, if I just possess all these dark dimensional beings, I'll consume their power and become powerful enough to change this.
Right.
And that's what he went about doing.
Yeah.
And he possessed,
cool.
even possessed pieces of the Hydra from the first episode of What If. You know, he eventually got some of those.
They brought
pieces.
that creature back. Yeah.
Yep. And then eventually he gets to the point where he can
and does,
but
bring her back.
Shocking twist, the Ancient One had tried to stop him, and in her efforts to stop him, she split the timeline.
Yeah.
She created another version of him in the same universe, but on different timelines. And they met, so the good Doctor Strange and the bad Doctor Strange were still existing together. And they eventually, he realized, I'm only half of myself. If I need to go get this good part of me to become whole and successfully do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And they end up fighting each other.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
And the bad guy won.
Yeah, he sucked him into his body and I got it.
I thought it was brilliant how every time he consumed one of these dimensional creatures, and he started off small and he got bigger and went more powerful as he went, he changed physically. Like his look and his changed. He changed like
he's got the dark circles under his eyes. His
goatee got
sharper, long.
His outfit got darker and more evil looking.
Oh, that's right. He had a cape, magical cape that fought the other magical cape.
Yeah.
The cape of levitation, or the cloak of levitation. Great. And then, but he ends up bringing her back, but only for a moment in time, because bringing her back, as the Ancient One predicted, was going to destroy this reality.
Yeah, his whole reality was collapsing in on him and everything he knew in that reality.
And he got so powerful that he could see the Watcher.
Yeah.
And he then, at that point in time, realized when he brought her back that he had destroyed his own reality. He asks Watcher, "Why can't you help? I know you can help. I know you can see me." And he's like, and he tells him, "I cannot intervene, and I won't intervene."
Right.
You know.
This is what you get.
Right. But
this is what you did to yourself.
Really dark ending of it. It was like all of a sudden the entire universe collapsed in on him, and he was stuck in some crystal ball, and it basically faded back. And
he had to create a mirror dimension to keep himself alive, or he would have been destroyed as well. It was wow. It was deep. It was dark.
Yeah. Really dark, and that's how it ended. It's like, holy crap. Now, based on the previews we've seen for What If, we know this version of Doctor Strange comes back later on in the series. We've seen pictures of him in the show with other characters, so we assume he's coming back somehow.
Yeah.
So this is not the last we're going to see of this Doctor Strange, but what we noticed at the end of the episode was it seemed like he finally realized he was ambitious, realized the error in his ways, and he was apologizing. I'm sorry, and
the evil Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
I like it.
What they call it, Strange Prime or something, like Doctor Strange. Prime or something like that.
I missed that. That's cool. He even had his own villain name.
Strange Supreme, because he was
Strange Supreme.
Yeah,
nice,
like a burrito supreme, but strange. Yeah. And anyway, I loved it. Great episode, and I think these are
best one so far.
Yep, these are doing what we thought they were going to do. They're entertaining us, and they're providing us. Now, do we know which one's coming next? Do we have an idea?
The zombie one.
Are we sure that's what's next?
I'm 99% sure.
Okay, great.
Never 100% sure, Professor.
Yeah.
But yeah, 90. I think the zombie one's next.
We know we've got a few on the docket. We have zombies. We have like Party Thor at some point in time. We've got the Killmonger Iron Man episode at some point in time. Yeah. So those have to kind of come. We haven't seen any of those yet. So
I'm pretty sure it's the zombie one.
Great.
Yeah.
So this will be. I think this is where do we get the wizard version of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker where he wears the cape, and then we also get Bucky fighting the zombies as well.
Oh
right?
yeah. That'll be cool. This would be a cool scene.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to our other review, and that's Titan Season 3, Episode 6.
Womp, womp, womp.
Titanium did not like this one very much. This was an episode really focused on the relationship between... It was a continuation of the story from last episode. Last episode we had kind of a flashback episode, really talking about the genesis of the Red Hood character. We see that kind of the show pick up from there this time. But this really focused on the history between Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson and their relationship and how, Barbara Gordon was, breaking away from her father. Dick Grayson was breaking away from Batman. They were doing it together, but then ultimately, they kind of always butted heads a little bit. But the show itself, I think, was, again, more plot moving, but it wasn't that fantastic.
No.
Right? Nothing really material happened.
It's still a great show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a good series, and I really enjoy it. It just seems to be, I don't know, it seems to be sputtering a little bit. The storyline, moving it forward, and the other characters getting more involved. I mean, yes, they play a part in these shows, but I don't think they move the story forward any, So maybe they're trying to build something and they're getting all the backstory. They did introduce Barbara as a new character. Now you have a little bit of a background, like an origin story, just like they did for Jason Todd. But I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea. That's it.
Yeah, and we got introduced to a new villain, Lady V, right?
Lady Vic, yeah.
Lady Vic.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. Get to the point is what Titanium's ready to move forward with some action, right?
No, yeah, and bring in a villain that's a little bit more formidable. I don't know.
Okay, well we'll move from there. Hopefully this next episode will be a little bit better. Let's get into the news section, and this one, of course, is sponsored by friends.
Real quick, Professor. Yeah. Is there a next one? Is episode 6 it, or there's another one
for Titans?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think it's 12, right?
I think it's like 12 or 13 episodes. Cool. Yeah. We're not even halfway through the season yet.
Okay, good. So plenty of time to redeem themselves.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I think there's, we've seen they're filling some time until they can get to kind of some of the plot points, right?
Good.
All right, news section brought to us by our friends over at BSB, bsbswag.com.
Swag. Yep, bsbswag.com.
Lifestyle brand, hats, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve. If you want to look good, go check out our friends at bsbswag.com.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, big news from the weekend. The movie we're going to be reviewing, and we got a chance to see this weekend, Shang-Chi, as Professor predicted, by the way, cleaned up at the box office. So go F yourselves, naysayers. Go F yourselves. People are like, oh, it'll do $40 to $45 million in the box office over the week. That's what everybody was saying. No. They were talking about how it's going to flop. I was telling you guys, I've been telling you guys for a long time, the community will embrace this character. The community's starved for this type of content. This movie's going to do great. Wait for it to happen. And it did.
Yeah. Big move that they just put in theaters.
$90 million it made over Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
It almost tripled the previous Labor Day weekend record, okay, which was I think 33 million by like Halloween rebooted movie or something.
Oh wow!
But $90 million.
Yeah.
It did almost 19 million on Monday, Labor Day Monday.
Yeah.
It did almost 19 million, which is the largest Monday ever in cinematic history.
Wow.
Okay? So this movie basically kicked the living crap out of it this weekend.
Yeah.
So it blew out the expectations from a financial perspective that anybody was thinking.
Yeah, my son Michael at VCU, him and his boys are going to go see it tonight. So that just speaks volumes. I don't think he's seen a movie in a theater in a year or 2 years. I mean, he hasn't seen a theater movie in a very long time, but he's going to see it. So I guess word of mouth has taken off. I think it's going to do well for the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
It goes to show, put together quality content, and people will come to the theaters to watch it. And oh, by the way, this next news item directly related to the performance of Shang-Chi in the theater this weekend. Yeah. So you've got some news. Oh, Sony came out and made a big announcement this week.
They sure did, Professor. They said that we're going to move up Venom. We're going to move it up from the 15th of October to October 1st.
So wait a minute. Wasn't it always going to be October 1st, and then they decided to move it back a couple weeks?
Yep, they've been moving it around, shuffling around, worried about box office ticket prices and box office ticket grosses, and I think Shang-Chi put a big light on the fact that if you release these films in theaters, people will go see them.
Yes. Make quality movies. And you know what, Scarlett? It's not because of a theatrical exclusivity is not why this movie was successful. It's because the movie was good. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Don't talk to my girlfriend like that. She doesn't deserve that.
All right.
Don't talk to my girlfriend like that.
I'm more bothered with her lawyers and all the people that are
exactly.
on
Now
her.
that I will agree with you, and I will gang tackle, and we can be egg beaters together on that, and just kind of run them through the mill.
If anybody that sees this movie doesn't believe it's better than Black Widow, we can have a conversation.
Oh,
just saying,
it's way better than Black Widow.
Just saying.
Yeah, agree.
And some other news about Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion has started filming. How exciting is that?
Well, that's why we had all those announcements about actors and actresses being linked to the show and all this other. They were, securing their cast so they could start filming. But yeah, it starts filming this week, huh? Pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited.
And that's I think slated for late next year, right? Yeah. So well, that's about the right time, right?
We're starting to get a lot of news from things that are coming out next year. Aquaman released his new outfit, and we're talking about different filming of this show and that show, and pre-production and post-production. It's the machine now. The content machine is just absolutely churning, and it's great for us. We're excited. We got a lot going on.
And I don't want to diminish how pivotal this past weekend's performance of Shang-Chi is.
I agree with you.
I think across the entire spectrum of movies. And
they use this as a barometer.
I'm just going to I want our audience to take some credit here, because we've been telling you out there, go see this movie. Go see this movie and go see it in theaters and support it, because it's going to make a difference. And you guys did, and it does make a difference. Not only did Sony move up Venom, but there were some rumors that they may delay Spider-Man No Way Home.
Uh-huh.
Now they're like, no, we're good. We're doubling down on the marketing efforts. We're sticking around. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot more Spider-Man No Way Home now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so thank you for going to support these movies, but please continue to do so. And, as you and I said, you make good product, people will go see it.
Yeah.
As we talked about in our first impressions video earlier on the weekend, my theater was pretty crowded. As it wasn't like
mine was too.
Full.
Mine wasn't sold out, but it was crowded. Yeah.
I mean, we saw the 6 p.m. show on Thursday, which is the earliest you could see that movie, and every row was full. Probably for 10 rows they were all full. It was great.
It definitely wasn't sold out, but it wasn't empty. It wasn't like New Mutants when we went to see New Mutants.
Nobody
in the heart of the pandemic.
Right
when it first started, we saw that movie, and there was no one.
Well, that was, I think, remember, it had been delayed like 4 times. I think we saw it like September, October.
Yeah.
It's like right when theaters reopened or something, and there was like nobody.
After the first wave. And then they shut down like 2 weeks later.
Yeah. All right. Crazy. Well, no reason to delay this any further. Let's just get into the topic of the week, which is our review, our full spoiler review
Spoilers,
of the Shang-Chi movie.
You are warned now. You can click off. Full spoiler warning.
It's brought to our friends, brought to you by our friends over at Studio G.
Studio G Studios, home of the man band, Corn on the Cob. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for all you do for us, Studio G. We love you, and keep doing it, because we really appreciate it. But look, let's get into it. And again, we're gonna make, if you guys haven't seen this movie yet, you don't want to hear our opinions, you don't want to hear some secrets or what you might see if you go to see this, please listen to the remainder of the show. Just listen to it on mute. Yeah, this would be now a good time to tune out. But we're gonna give it all to you. Again, we do have a video on our YouTube page that's kind of our first impression. So if you're just looking for what did we really think, and without any spoilers, go view that video.
Yeah, there's no spoilers in that, and it's like a 6-minute video. It's just first impression.
Yeah, just us coming out of theater and kind of giving you our first thoughts. But we're going to talk about what we saw and some of the things that were in the movie. So, spoiler alert, spoiler warning.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into it. So, what did you think, Titanium?
I thought it was an absolute show, like a blockbuster, high quality. The fight scenes, all the way from the fight scenes to the CGI to the character development. I mean, it was a lot for Marvel to take on. They had to work in an origin story. They added in a family drama, daddy issues. They added in a superhero movie, and then they paid homage to Chinese folklore and the mystic arts of the Chinese culture and things like that. They took on a lot in this movie, and I think they really did it well. It was an ambitious move, and I thought they did it really, really well. Were there some things I did not like about it and some things that I'm kind of questioning a little bit? Sure, we can get into that. But overall, absolutely outstanding. I loved it.
Well, and this has been a pet project of Kevin Feige's, and he did admit that he's been wanting to do this movie ever since he did Iron Man 1. So the Master Kung Fu and Shang-Chi have been favorite characters of his, and he's always been looking for a way to somehow make this project happen. And if not the project, the character.
Yeah.
And only now was he able to do that. And we found out why, because, this reminds me, and I talked about this a few episodes ago, this reminds me very much of when they decided to take a group of characters called the Guardians of the Galaxy and give a young, well, it's not so much young, but a up-and-coming director at the time, the opportunity to take those characters and do something special with them.
Yeah.
And James Gunn hit it out of the park with that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and he did the exact same thing here. He said, I'm going to take a character that I think has a lot of potential, and I'm going to give a young, up-and-coming director the opportunity to showcase this character and tell a story that I think needs to be told. And boy,
Dustin,
did it pay off.
What's his name? Dustin...
I'd have to look it up.
Cotton? Dustin something. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. And it was a home run.
Yeah.
An absolute home run. I think he did a brilliant job. And once again, and like we said in the first impressions, people, the casting was spot on. I mean, I can't now, after seeing the movie, I can't imagine anybody playing Shang-Chi's or playing his father or his mother, or I can't imagine any of it. I mean, just spot on.
Destin Cretton.
Yep.
Cretton.
Dustin.
But yeah, it was funny to hear Kevin Feige talk about Simu Liu, and he was in a sitcom up in Canada called Kim's Convenience. It's like a sitcom about a Asian family that owns a convenience store.
Oh, wow.
And that's where they found him. And he's like, we're really big fans of his, and he had done some great work on the sitcom. We're like, we think we could make him work. Wow. And I said this in my first impressions video, what I was most impressed by, he played every part of his role very well.
Yeah.
He did all the fight scenes and the fight choreography and made it believable that he was a master of the martial arts.
Second to none as far as fight scenes are concerned.
He was awesome.
And the martial arts, the different martial arts they incorporated, from Kung Fu to Jin Woon Jung and all these different types
Tai Chi.
All of it. I mean, unbelievable that they kind of combined all of these and put it into a movie. I thought it was brilliant. Second to none, the fight scenes were probably my favorite part.
Yeah, but Simu Liu's ability to not only do the fight scenes, but then do the serious parts of his role, and then the comedic parts of his role, and was able to transition between them very seamlessly. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can love or not love Awkwafina. She's incredibly popular, and the roles she plays in these movies that she's been in have been iconic. But she was really like that perfect slice of kind of crazy quirkiness that you need in a movie like this.
Yeah, she was a lot funnier in Crazy Rich Asians, but I think she was perfect for this role. Her one-liners and her comedic input at the right time was outstanding. I love her. I thought she was great. But to be honest with you, Tony Liang stole the show.
Yeah.
His father, the guy that played the so-called Mandarin or Wee Woo, Wenwu.
Yeah.
His father, I'm telling you right now, that was the show, man. He was excellent. He was the type of villain that you want. He was an anti-hero kind of, he was really bad, just a bad guy, and then he gave it all up for love and then lost his love, and the grief-stricken brought him back to evil and just was on a mission to save I just thought that was brilliant, and he played that perfectly.
He was awesome.
He was awesome.
Yeah, he was awesome. Well, it reminds me of a lot of other Marvel movies. Quill
and Ego.
Infinity War. You could say that about Black Panther. You could say that. I mean, there's been a lot of Marvel movies where it's more about the villain. I mean, Infinity War was more about Thanos and his struggle of his mission to kind of quell half the universe because it was the right thing to do.
Odin and Loki, Quill and Ego, Tony Stark and Howard Stark, that father...
Black Panther and Killmonger. And Killmonger. I'm just saying, Killmonger, the movie was as much about Killmonger as it was about Black Panther.
Yeah, but the father and son tension in that kind of storyline. I mean, you know what else I kind of got a little vibe of in this? A little Darth Vader-ish, right? Darth Vader and his son.
Absolutely, they played on that.
Isn't that cool? I gotta like.
Well, especially the final fight scene.
Oh,
yeah,
a
lot of that where they were fighting, and then eventually when we realize this, look, my son's, I screwed up. He's fighting for the greater good here. I need to help him, and he eventually does.
Sacrificed himself for his son
after he'd freed the beast that killed him. But yes, yeah.
Well, that beast was in his mind, right?
Yeah.
So he was driven by his grief
and by love, by his desire to have his wife back. But what a great storyline where he was this warlord, and they said, "Hey, I've been called by many names," and Khan, and he was Genghis Khan, right? So, but they showed him 1,000 years ago. Fighting some ancient army and just devastating him with the 10 rings.
Yeah.
But they said the 10 rings gave him, some extra long life, and he'd been living for 1,000 years, and he was just this warlord, and then had no desires to have a family, had no desires to get married, just was this conquering, places for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden he finds this mystical place that he's always heard about.
He conquered everything that he wanted to and achieved everything that he wanted to achieve on Earth, and he was going after another dimension, another mystical place,
right?
That he found out was real, and then his obsession turned to.
And he found it,
yeah.
And he met who ends up becoming his wife.
Yeah. He heard about Tylo, the ancient village. And then he went after that, and he found his true love,
and he gave up everything.
Cool fight scene.
Oh, it was awesome! That fight scene was great. Because
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. What was that movie called?
Yes, but very similar. Where she was the only one that could beat him.
Yeah.
She could beat him because she used all of his moves against him, and as a matter of fact, stole the rings from him at one point in time. Yeah. And he was like, "What the heck just happened?"
Yeah. No one's ever been able to match me.
Right.
And fell in love.
Yeah, they ended up falling in love, and she gave up. So the power that she had, or the special powers that she had, were given to her by the ancient protector dragon, which was part of her, other dimensional village.
Yeah.
She gave that up to be with him.
Was the village, the hidden village.
Right. She gave that up to be with him, but he gave up the 10 rings to be with her, and they got married, had a family, had 2 children, and then some of his old cronies came calling and wanted to collect some bills because he was such a bad guy before, and they ended up killing her.
Yeah.
And that set him off.
Yeah, he put the 10 rings back on and made a promise to his son that he was going to make him the greatest assassin in the world, and trained him to kill people. And that's his origin story, and that's when he turned. I think his mother was teaching him her ways. So he started off with that background of her ways, with the open hand and the Tai Chi type of movements.
And telling him that he had the heart of the dragon. Like, it was in him.
Right.
What's in her was in him.
Yeah.
Right.
The great protector, the dragon that was in the Tylo village that came from, who knows, I guess outer space or something.
We don't know.
Yeah. Really cool, though. That was, I love that fight scene between him and her.
Oh, that was one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh, great.
But, I'd say the first quarter of the movie at least was a lot of backstory. We got the backstory of him and her. We got the backstory of what happened because Shang-Chi was trained until he was a teenager to be an assassin, and then eventually his dad's like, "Okay, son, it's time for you to go kill the guy who was responsible for killing your mom."
Yeah,
sent him off on a mission.
14 or 15 years old. Yeah.
And he got sent away, and he never came back.
Yeah, he left his sister there.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a sad story. But that's what I'm saying. It was extremely... The first and second act were unbelievable.
But
unbelievable.
We assume, at least at that point in time in the movie, we assumed that he was sent on this assassination mission and chose not to do it and decided not to come home. But he told us later that he actually did do it.
He did do it.
And it was what prevented him from coming home, because he couldn't face everybody anymore because he felt so bad about it.
Yeah, he felt bad that he had killed the guy that killed his mother. Yeah.
Right.
Which is, he was trained to kill a man every second.
But we get from there, they kind of flash forward. We see Shang, who is now, he's living in San Francisco as Sean. Instead of Shang, it's Sean.
Yeah.
And he's parking cars, with his best friend from high school.
Katie. Which is Awkwafina.
Mm-hmm. But they, and his father's, family kind of catches up to him. He gets a postcard from his sister. He ends up having to go to China to meet her. But his father's gang of 10 rings. Oh, and we got a lot of the 10 rings, too. So we knew the 10 Rings were an organization, but we kind of found out that he's been running them, and he was the one responsible. So Shang-Chi's father, Wenwu, was responsible for Iron Man becoming Iron Man.
Yeah.
They had somebody in the Ant-Man movie. They had, there were people, 10 Rings people everywhere, all over the MCU.
His organization was far-reaching.
And as I predicted on the last show that there would be a real Mandarin, no. What we found out, I was wrong. What they said was he was pretty pissed off that somebody decided to take his visage and who he was and put some name of chicken, a chicken dish,
orange chicken,
dish on him, and they call him the Mandarin, but. There is no Mandarin, but that character was his father for all intents and purposes. But look, his father and the 10 Rings come after Shang and his sister. This is where we got the fight where his sister was living in Macau. Yep, and running her own
the Golden Dagger Club.
Right, running your own fight club in Macau.
Big fight ring.
And that's where we got the scene of Wong fighting Abomination.
But how about before that? How about that fight scene in the bus? With what was it?
Razor Fist.
Razor Fist? Oh my God.
Where he finally, at one point in time, Katie got hit, and he's like, okay, now it's time.
Oh, it's on.
It's on, right? And
I'm not going to put up with that.
And he fought like 5 guys on the bus, including Razor Fist. And they were after his pendant.
Yes, very reminiscent of Jackie Chan, where using his jacket as a weapon, very reminiscent. Jackie Chan, his fighting, they brought that in. You know that when Jackie Chan kind of developed that, him and his stunt coordinator developed that kind of fighting style where they would incorporate chairs and tables and vases and jackets and whatever they could around them, incorporated into the fight scene, which I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, the bus fight scene was fantastic. Yeah. And he ends up becoming famous because then he was called Bus Boy.
Yeah.
So when he went to the fight club, everybody knew him as Bus Boy.
By the way, the guy on the bus that was filming him, that was hilarious, by the way, is the same guy that was at the hot dog stand. Spider-Man Homecoming at the hot dog stand.
Hey, Spider-Man, do a flip!
Yeah,
that guy.
Same guy.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I love how they bring those in, little Easter eggs like that.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
But you're right. They were after his pendant, right?
They were after his pendant, and then the pendant gets stolen. Then he ends up thinks he gets a postcard from his sister, but he ends up going to find her in Macau, and Awkwafina comes with him, and Katie comes with him, and get to the fight club, and all kinds of Easter eggs in the fight club, by the way. We had an extremist soldier from Iron Man 3. We had a Black Widow fighting each other. I mean, it was crazy. But then we see Wong and Abomination fighting each other.
Yeah.
And Wong, gets hit a couple times, but then he gets Abomination to knock himself out through a portal, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they knew each other.
Yeah.
And they've been working together. So we'll kind of figure out where that goes.
It was bizarre. When Wong, after the fight, they were kind of talking to each other like in the locker room, like an after fight, and they were kind of had a little bit of back and forth. And then he opens up another, one of those spinny portals. And you can see in the background some kind of like containment. So maybe he was taking him back to his containment thing, and he gets him out every once in a while to fight and
help him train,
become friends with him. So I I think we're going to see Abomination in the future here.
Well, we know he's going to be back in She-Hulk,
right.
Disney Plus series, but yes. But Tim Roth, funny enough, Tim Roth, who played the Abomination in the Incredible Hulk movie, did come back to do all the grunts and everything for his.
Did he really?
Yeah, he's listed in the IMDb page as the Abomination.
All the grunts and moaning.
Yeah, right, exactly. That was him.
I think that was great. I thought that was another highlight for me, is because I saw the Abomination in the trailers. I thought he was going to be like chained or something, and they unleash him just to fight, and then they have to chain him back up and put him in his cage. That the relationship between him and Wong, that I want to see that.
Oh, and he called him Emil, so he knew his name.
He knew his name.
Yep. So it was funny though when Abomination knocked himself out. All those guys running into the ring and having to drag him out because he's so big and heavy. It was hysterical. But Shang-Chi ends up having to fight in there, and he ends up fighting his sister.
Yeah.
And doesn't want to fight her. Hadn't seen her since he left her when she was 12 years old or whatever.
Yeah, so she's got a little pent up.
She's a little pissed and knocks the snot out of him.
Backstory on her is that she would watch. She wasn't allowed to train with everybody or with Shang-Chi, so she trained on her own and kind of taught herself a lot of the fighting skills and became a master of fighting herself. And she ends up displaying some of that when she's fighting him.
She ended up
kind of kicks his ass.
Training herself and became a major badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she kicked his ass. Well, he didn't want to fight her, but at the same time, the two of them fought against the Ten Rings when they were trying to capture him.
Yeah.
But they do get captured. No big surprise there. And Wenwu brings him back to his compound somewhere in China.
I don't think so captured, but realizes that it was his father that was there. They took her pendant.
Well, they were fighting until the father got there, and then when the Ten Rings came out, it was like, okay, time to stop fighting.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
Death
Dealer.
Yeah.
I thought they should have explored him a little bit more, or her. We don't know if it's a girl or boy, but I
there
thought
was
that
obviously
was a cool
some tension between him and Shang-Chi. He was the one who trained Shang-Chi when he was younger and would beat him, and Shang was not happy. But he kind of went out a little too easy as far as I'm concerned.
I thought so too.
That's one of my disappointing things.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, they go back to Wenwu's compound. He tells the story of how he's found this, these pendants, unlock a map on how to get back to their mom's secret village, and that's where she's being held.
Yeah.
She's being held behind a gate, and they need to free her.
Yeah.
And
she's being punished for leaving them years ago to marry me and have you guys.
Right.
So he's trying to get them on his team, right?
And they don't believe him. They're like, yeah,
Katie has a great line there. It's like, did that dragon just vomit a bunch of water that turned into a magical map? Something like that. She said something like that, and it was hilarious. It was a good scene.
Yeah, it was great. But they end up meeting somebody at Wenwu's facility there that was kind of surprising. I think we all knew it was happening.
We knew he was in the movie somehow.
But they run into Trevor Slattery.
Who's imprisoned there. And then I guess he talked himself into putting on shows for some of the people. They love his acting, so he puts on shows. He's just an actor there. And
I'm going to tell you, Ben Kingsley was one of the funniest surprises of this movie. Not only, I think we all expected to see him in some form or fashion in the movie, but I didn't know he was going to have as a prevalent a role as he did. He was in basically the entire last third of the movie for the most part.
Third act for sure.
But when he was explaining to them why he got into acting, here's why I got into acting, was when he saw the Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, I saw this movie called Planet of the Apes. And when I realized they could get the monkeys to act like that, I knew I wanted to be an actor. And they're like, when the monkeys, when they were able to get the monkeys to act, that was acting. And I was like, oh my God. So this guy's entire career is based on the fact that he thought the Planet of the Apes movie was real monkeys that were taught how to act. And it made him want to become an actor.
Brilliant. Absolutely
brilliant. It was
brilliant.
hysterical.
Yeah.
And just how serious he was when he was telling the story. I was just like laughing my ass off. I'm like, this is awesome.
And Morris, his little mystical friend that I guess Wenwu found on his journeys and stole and brought back a mystical creature.
It's a winged, faceless, six-legged creature, right?
Yeah, something.
And it's based on some Chinese mythology or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like a Hundun or something. It's called a Hundun, and it's supposed to have all kinds of mystical. Hundun, come on. you see how I'm staying away from a lot of their names. I'm just saying, Shang-Chi's sister. There's no way I could say her name.
Xialing. Xialing was it?
Shun Xialing.
Xialing.
Okay.
But yeah, so they end up Trevor and the mythical creature
Morris. Just call him Morris.
Yeah. His name's Morris.
Yeah.
They end up escaping. They steal Razor Fist's car, which is also hysterical.
Yeah.
And escape the compound, and Morris is able to guide them to the village. He doesn't. He doesn't need the map. He can guide them there because he's been there.
He knows the
way.
System. Yeah, the stay in the pocket, this magical pocket that gets through this enchanted bamboo forest that has killed many, many people trying to get through it. He knows how to get through it, and they finally get into it. Yeah,
they get in, and at some point in time, they get into a waterfall in a cave, and in that cave, it goes into another dimension. I mean, they go. Yeah. You could see like a wormhole effect. Very similar, like a Doctor Strange wormhole, right? They go into this wormhole, and all of a sudden they're in some village in some other dimension, right?
Tao Lo, and it's a magical other dimension village where his mother is from, and he meets his aunt there.
Yeah, his aunt's played by Michelle Yeoh. You recognize her from a million different movies, but she is Shang and Xialing's aunt, and she comes out and says, I missed your mom. I'm glad you guys are here. Yeah. I'm glad to see you. Let me show you and tell you about our village and what we are. And we learn why they're there. They're there to protect the world or the universe or whatever against a being that is trapped behind a gate.
A soul snatcher, yeah. Somebody, a giant, a beast from another dimension that's a pretty bad dude, apparently, that... basically, the Dweller in the Dark is the
Dweller in the Darkness.
Dweller in the Darkness is this. It's almost like a dragon type creature, but obviously has some kind of
real character from the comic books. It's as a matter of fact, it's one of the Fear Lords, the 9 Fear Lords in the comic books. It's called the Dweller in the Darkness,
but not Fing Fang Foom. Not that creature. It's a fear character.
Fing Fang Foom has nothing to do with the Dweller in the Darkness.
So he's a separate. This guy's a separate creature. It's a dweller.
So Fing Fang Foom. Okay, so in the comic books, the 10 rings that went around your fingers that were found by the Mandarin came from a race of space dragons called the McLuhans.
Yes.
And Fing Fang Foom was one of those space dragons. As a matter of fact, he was the navigator of the spaceship that crashed. And the rings that the Mandarin found belonged to the McLuhans. Fing Fang Foom survived and lived on Earth after this, and he was a dragon that lived on Earth, right? But he has nothing to do with anything that's in...
nothing in this movie, yeah. I think that originally, they're going to find out that the rings did come from that ancient alien dragon race that is basically the McLuhans, but I think he's a bad dude, but... Yeah, the Dweller in the Darkness.
Was a demon.
That was a demon.
Yeah, it's a
really cool character.
It's a soul leader in the comic. He has a octopus head in the comic books, but it's a real character. But this thing's bad. I mean, it basically has these little tiny dragons that
steal souls
and feed them to him, and then he becomes powerful. Crazy powerful.
Okay, so this is where I've been gushing greatness over this. This is where I have a little issue with this. The mystical creatures that they go through, that they spend a little bit of time showing, is an homage to mystical creatures from Chinese
history.
Chinese folklore and all that. I get that. Great. Super. But did they need this? Did they need Dweller in the Darkness and these soul snatchers as part of the story?
We always thought, or we were under the impression that the big bad and the reason that the thing that Shang-Chi had to defeat in this movie was his father.
Yes.
And then we get to this other dimensional village and find out that there's this demon locked behind this curtain of dragon scales that is the real villain. And it's been trying to convince Wenwu to come free it. And Wenwu does come to the village to free, which he thinks it's his ex-wife or his dead wife.
And a lot of it is communicating through the rings themselves. That he's convincing and playing off of his grief, feeding from his grief.
And he's using the rings to knock down this barrier that's made up of the dragon scales of the great protector dragon, who has given gifts to the other members of the village in shields and swords and spears, weapon. You know, and
the only thing that can kill the soul suckers, the little aliens that.
But Wenwu comes there with his 10 Rings organization and starts fighting the villagers, and they have this big knockdown and drag out battle. But then Wenwu goes over, he fights Shang, and beats him up pretty badly, knocks him into the water, goes to the gate of the dragon scales and starts knocking it down with the 10 Rings, because the 10 Rings could knock down this dragon scale gate.
Yeah.
And that's when Shang meets the great protector dragon.
Woke him up from his slender sleep underneath the water. I guess those dragons in Chinese folklore lived in water. That's where they lived. So really cool, yeah.
But I agree with you, Titanium. I think the transition from real battle of real people with real problems to mythical CGI creatures, kind of a little crazy.
Yeah, I think
too much CGI.
Not just too much CGI, but I guess what they were going for, very ambitious. What they were going for was a reason to turn Wenwu to Shang-Chi, so that they had that connection. So, very similar to Killmonger, when he saw the sunset. My father just said it was the most beautiful sunset, and he was right. That kind of, you felt a little heart pull.
Yeah, and I think this part of the movie, while visually spectacular and special effects while there was a lot of CGI, it was all done very well.
Yeah.
But what we saw was a battle between Shang-Chi and his father. And Shang really embracing his mother's philosophy and mother's fighting style to overcome his father's power over him with the 10 Rings.
Yeah.
Ends up stealing 5 of them for himself.
Yeah. And
they start listening to him. And then ultimately, the Dweller in the Darkness gets out.
Mm-hmm.
And Wenwu realizes, holy crap, you were right. This demon is now released. I need to save you. And he picks up Shang-Chi, and his father saves him and ends up getting killed by it. But then the 10 Rings come to Shang-Chi, and he's like, all right, now it's on.
Yeah.
So
and the Great Protector comes out and starts battling the creature as well. It was just a lot, It was. I guess. Don't get me wrong.
It was
very
fun.
Cool. It was very cool the way Shang-Chi adapted the 10 Rings and then used them to defeat the creature and showed how powerful he really is. And how moving forward, he is going to be a very formidable superhero and great, powerful Avenger,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that happens. I mean, we won't go into details about it, but it happens. He defeats the Soul Sucker, and all is good. His father's dead. Everybody else. Oh, and Katie has a big moment in the fight as well. She's able to. There was a big kind of side plot with her learning how to become an archer, and then they're all telling her she's not ready, and then eventually she's the one that shoots the arrow and slices the neck of the Soul Sucker at the right time.
Right.
And, big redemption moment for her. But I mean, I think the movie and the way that it ended, again, the as much CGI and craziness as there was,
did they need it?
No, but it wasn't like, oh my god, that ruined the movie.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
It was like, okay, a little much, but yeah.
The first 2 acts, if there were 3 acts in this whole movie, the first 2 acts were absolutely off the charts, probably one of my favorite. And the third act was a little questionable, but still great.
Right.
I just want to make sure that it was still great, well worth seeing, awesome. And, I don't know where it's in my ranking of films. But let's talk about the after credit scenes.
Yeah, there's 2. So the movie ends. There's 2 post-credit. There's a mid-credit scene and then a post-credit scene. What I'll tell you is the mid-credit scene's important. The post-credit scene's like, if you really need to stick around and see it, you can, but you're really not missing anything. We'll tell you exactly what it says. The mid-credit scene is Katie and Shang in a restaurant with their friends from earlier in the movie, who were complaining that they had no ambition and weren't doing anything with their lives. Now they're having dinner with him again, and they're telling him the story of how Shang saved the universe and killed this demon with a King Kamehameha move with his 10 rings, and they're all like, what? Well, then Wong comes into the restaurant through a spinning gate and says, Shang-Chi, do you have the 10 rings? Come with me. And then both of you come with me. So then Katie and Shang go through this portal, and then they're being interviewed by...
Yeah, Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel.
Right, and Wong.
Yeah,
and they're looking at the 10 rings. They're like, okay, how old are they? Do they look Shatari? And, Captain Marvel's like, it's no alien technology that I'm familiar with. And Bruce doesn't know what they are either or what they're made of.
They're way older than 1,000 years.
He goes, how long did you say your dad had these? And he said, over 1,000 years. He's like, wow, well, when you used them, we felt it in Karmatage. And it set off, and we also, something else happened. And they go in and show that it's now, one of the 10 rings was broadcasting a beacon.
Yeah, the rings themselves are broadcasting some kind of beacon, which is huge. Typical Marvel, right? They're setting up something coming. They want you to be, waiting for the next big thing. Like, oh, what was that beacon calling? Who is that beacon calling?
Well, they're setting up the sequel. I don't know if that is referring to something that's happening near term or more the sequel of this movie. We'll find out, obviously.
I can't wait.
But
another big shocker there is that Bruce Banner isn't Professor Hulk.
He's
his normal human self.
And he's still in a sling.
Still arm in a sling, but he's not
he's
Professor
changed back
Hulk.
From
he's changed
Professor.
back.
Yeah.
What's that story all about?
We'll find out, right?
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think he's going back and forth now instead of just staying.
Going back and forth. Okay.
Yeah, he can change back and forth, I think.
Interesting.
We'll find out. I think we're going to find out a lot about him in the She-Hulk series, for sure.
I think they needed to do that for the She-Hulk series.
Well, yes, they had to, because Professor Hulk was not able to give a blood transfusion to his cousin.
And that would be very expensive.
Right.
Animating and CG Hulk.
I think that has a lot to do with it, right? The cost of making Professor Hulk is a lot higher than having Mark Ruffalo. But the other thing that he said at the end of that interview was, he said, welcome to the circus. Circus, right? So he said that to Shang-Chi. So that just tells you this character is he's in future Marvel projects. He's in future versions of the Avengers potentially, and
to bring both of those in, to bring Captain Marvel in, and to bring the Hulk and Bruce Banner, I think it just shows that, hey, we got these guys, and they already know about him. They're welcoming him in. And then she gets called. She has some emergency that she has to go to. I think we're going to find out about that. I think we're going to find out about why Bruce Banner is Bruce Banner instead of Professor Hulk. And I think it was a great scene between them. And setting up the future.
Well, and again, I can't wait to see this character again. And I hope the next time we see him, it's a cameo or something that's small, which would be fantastic. Some Disney Plus series or something.
Right? Oh, it'd be huge.
That'd be great.
I don't understand. I guess I know why, but they bring Katie with him as his sidekick, and I guess that's important. It seemed a little pushed, right? Like, really, does she need to be there? I mean, she shot the arrow. Is she going to have some superpowers? Is she going to be skilled? I guess they're buddies, so they brought him along. But I thought that was a little weird, and I hope they answer that, or at least she's.
That did seem weird. I was like, you didn't need to.
It's really Shang-Chi that we need in the 10 Rings to analyze. Yeah. But great springboard to Phase 4. We didn't get that with
Black Widow.
No. Black Widow was a past, a flashback. We knew she was going to live in that movie. We knew she was going to survive. We kind of knew how it was going to end because we already knew the future of the MCU at that point. So it was a big flashback type of movie. Good action, great action. But this movie was a springboard for the future of Marvel. We got a beacon. We got history. We got his sister now. And the last.
Yep, that was the last end credit scene was his sister had gone back to Wenwu's compound
to shut down the 10 Rings.
But come to find out, she decides she's
going to run the
10 rings.
She's brought her people
and now women are training alongside of the men, and they're going to be and they've kind of made it more modern and retro with
there's satellites and digital technology all over the place.
Graffiti on the walls and all kinds of other.
It's kind of like the Golden Daggers getup, her nightclub.
And that movie ends with the statement, "The 10 Rings will return," so we know we're going to see them again.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah. And the lotus flower instead of the 2 hooked swords in the middle of the logo. Yeah. And she's a badass, man. She's gonna, I don't know. She might go evil with like her father's ways. I mean, she's taken over. I think that was a great way to end it. I think
she deserved more speaking roles. She did have some speaking parts early in the movie, and then at the end of the movie, she had some fight scenes, but she didn't have many lines.
Not a lot of character development. So I'm hoping that in the sequel, maybe they focus more on him and her and their relationship.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. Yeah. So,
but overall, like I said in my kind of early reviews, this is absolutely without question in my top half of Marvel movies. I would not put it in my top 5 or 10. But it's I don't know where, if I could pull up my list, I would kind of be able to slot it in pretty quickly. But it's up there as far as entertainment, character development, story. Like, here's this thing. I can't wait to see this again. Like I mean, my wife wants to go see it. I'm gonna go see it again. I can't wait to see it again.
I am too.
Black Widow, I still haven't watched twice.
No, I watched it. I watched Black Widow 3 times, and the second time I watched it was because some family members were watching it. My youngest daughter wanted to watch it again, and I watched it with her. And then the third time was my oldest daughter wanted to watch it, so I watched it again with her. And it was funny. I got a lot more of the jokes and stuff, but it didn't get any better.
No.
This one, I think, is going to get better.
I can't wait to see this again. This will be great.
Same,
so, I mean, again, definitely in my top half of Marvel movies. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll do that next show. Figure out where it slots. And
we can do that for the next show.
Are there 24 movies now?
Something
25?
like that.
25 MCU movies?
Let's put it in our rankings and see where it ends up.
Okay.
And we won't talk about each other. We'll just see where it ends up individually. Okay.
We'll do that next week. But yeah, I mean, overall, loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey.
Go see this in the theaters, people.
Go see it. It's so worth it. It was great. And the sound and everything on this is just spectacular. It was a great movie. Yeah. So, hey, let's ring the bell, Professor.
All right. Well, that great show, and that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com, or @supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out.
And we're out.
A little over an hour. We knew that was going to happen. That was a good movie.
Well, we got through a lot, considering.
Thank you.
Considering this is the first time you and I have really talked about the movie since we've seen it.
we haven't talked.